So we'll begin with talking about Iblis. From our young folks here, who is Iblis? Raise your hand if you've heard the term Iblis. Who is Iblis? Exactly. Iblis is the proper name of the head shaitan. The first name, the proper name of the head shaitan. Shaitan, the term Iblis and the term shaitan is very interesting, because in the Quran sometimes Allah Ta'ala invokes the name Iblis, and other times, in most cases, Allah Ta'ala mentions shaitan. And sometimes Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentions the plural shayateen. Right? Shayateen. And what we know is that the shayateen, coming from the shaitan, that they are a creation of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. They are of the jinn. Shaitan was created of the jinn. He was a jinn. He is a jinn. Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran, "Kana min al-jinn." Right? Shaitan was of the jinn. And the jinn are a creation of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that was here before the earth, created from fire that has no smoke. So the malaika, the angels, are created from light, nur. And the jinn are created from fire, nar. Right? And both are in the realm of the unseen, the invisible world. We don't see them, angels or jinn. And jinn have the capacity, the ability to think, to reason, to understand. They have communication. They have their own civilization. They marry. They have families. They interact. They have development. They have homes. They have allies. They have communities. Some of them believe in the message of Allah and the Prophet ﷺ, and some don't. And this is very important for us to understand, because understanding a little bit about the jinn and about shaitan is important for us to protect ourselves. And it's part of our belief. In this time, in our society where Halloween and the month of Halloween is upon us, this entire society will be thinking about things that are in the realm of the unseen and the magic, things that aren't real and things that are fearful and everything. So we should have a very solid understanding, thank you, of where we are on these issues, so we don't, and our children don't, follow things that they shouldn't follow. And when our kids and our family members ask questions about things, we have an understanding of how to answer. So this entire month, after Salatul Maghrib, I'll be dealing with these things, inshallah ta'ala, step by step, inshallah ta'ala. So let us start from the beginning. Iblis. Kana min al-jinn, he was of the jinn. فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ, Allah Ta'ala says. But he deviated from the path of Allah. He went outside of the path of Allah. And so what's important is that Allah introduced to us two things. One, the creation of the human being, Adam, the first human being. And at the same time, the relationship between Adam and shaitan. It was not a good one, and it was not, the problems weren't started from Adam's side or Hawa's side. It was the problem that Iblis had with Adam alayhi salam. Right? And Iblis, in his refusal to make sajda, Allah Ta'ala commanded that the malaika, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِذْ قَالَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ. So when Allah Ta'ala said to the angels, isjudu, bow down, prostrate to Adam, fasajadu, the malaika, the angels, they all prostrated. Illa Iblis. Now this is very interesting, because Allah Ta'ala says they all prostrated but Iblis. But Iblis was not a part of the malaika. But Iblis was of the jinn. Our scholars of tafsir, the mufassirun, the scholars of the Quran, say that the malaika here that Allah Ta'ala is referring to is ru'usa al-malaika, the heads of the malaika, the ones in charge. See, there's different types of angels. And Allah Ta'ala has put some angels in charge of others. So for example, Mikael is mentioned in the Quran, one of the noble angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mikael is in charge of other angels. Jibreel alayhi salam, the head of all of the angels, in charge of the revelation, for example. Right. Ridwan, for example, the name of the angel that's in charge of all the angels in paradise. He's the gatekeeper of Jannah, actually. Ridwan. Malik, for example, the angel that's in charge of all the angels in the hellfire. He's the gatekeeper of Jahannam. Right? And so Mikael, for example, one of his roles is to be in charge of the angels whose job it is to bring the rizq and bring the rain from the heavens to the earth, so that everything on earth has what it needs to survive. There's angels that have their supervisor, their boss. Mikael is a boss, for example, head of all the other angels in some respect. And there's other malaika as well. So with this head, all of these top levels angels, وَالْمُرْسِلَاتِ عُرْفًا, for example, Allah Ta'ala talks about the certain angels that are sent to the heavens or to the earth with certain responsibilities and certain tasks. Munkar and Nakir, for example, the angels that are in charge of taking the souls. They have angels working for them that take the souls of the human beings and the jinn, for example. And so there's one Munkar and one Nakir over all the other Munkar and Nakir angels in charge of taking souls and questioning the souls in the grave. Men of the Prophet ﷺ taught us, who is your Rabb? Who is your Prophet? What is your deen? So all these other small Munkar and Nakir report to the larger one, for example. And every human being has an angel on their right and on their left that reports what they do on a day, that send that document to the samawat, to the heavens. But so they're angels that do the work, just like in the world. They're employees, workers, and then they're the bosses. The bosses are called the ru'usa, the heads of the malaika. The mufassirun, the scholars, they said that the main amr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to the heads, the commanders. When the order is given to the commanders of the angels, the troops follow. Right? The community follow. When the leaders do something, the rest follow. When the bosses do something, the rest follows. So the command was to the commanders, the ru'usa, the leaders. Usjud, make sajda. And Iblis alayhi salam was alayhi lanatullah. Iblis, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's displeasure continue to be with him. He was in the majlis, present, and he was ra'is. He was also head of the jinn. So he was in the position of being ra'is, head. And so the command was for the heads, and all of them were there that happened to be angels except Iblis, to make sajda. And the heads, the commanders bowed, the leaders made sajda, but Iblis, who was a leader, did not make, which is why Allah Ta'ala said, illa Iblis. Not only was it the fact that he didn't make sajda, but he was part of the command to do that as a leader, right? As a commander, and he had rejected that command. Right? And because of that situation, he fasaqa an amri rabbi. Right? He went outside of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know the reason why, the jealousy that he had. خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِنْهُ. I'm better than him. I'm better than this creation. All of these things. So the point is, he made a pact and a contract to mislead the human beings. Iblis, his name, Iblis, means the one who is far from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the Arabic language, the word balasa or ablasa means a person. If you say, for example, ablasa rajul, a person became ablas, it means that this person became isolated and alone and cut off and by themselves, disconnected from everything. They're disconnected because of their disconnectedness, they're isolated, they're alone, and they enter into a state of despair. So ablasa. Iblis is isolated and alone, separated, disconnected, because he disconnected himself from the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's isolated. We have a method in English which says, misery loves company. Right? When you're sad, or when you're upset, or when you won't want to be by yourself. You want others to be with you, and to sympathize with you, and to take your point of view. And so that's why people who are in trouble, they want other people to get in trouble. So Iblis, he's separated from the mercy of Allah, from the pleasure of Allah, and so he wants company as well. So this is one of the meanings of his name. Iblis is the one who's distant and separated from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then in the Quran, Allah ta'ala mentions the word shaitan. Iblis is the name. Can you imagine being called the one that's distant from Allah? Iblis, subhanallah. Then Allah ta'ala mentions shaitan. Shaitan is an interesting word as well, because unlike Iblis, which is the proper name, shaitan is a sifa that can apply to jinn and can apply to human beings as well. Shayateen al-ins wal jinn. Right? In English, shaitan is translated as the devil. And so in this sense, there are people of the human race that in the abstract sense, in the majazi sense, metaphorical sense, they are shayateen. They are devilish behavior. We say devilish behavior, right? Devilish conduct, right? Evil like the devil, bad like the devil, in this sense. So shayateen al-ins, shaitans from human beings and the jinn as well. There are some jinn that are good, that believe in Allah and His Messenger. Right? Allah Ta'ala says, قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. Right? Some of the jinn went and said, we've listened to the revelation of the Quran. Right? And so, but there are also shayateen of jinn. Shaitan, devils from amongst the jinn. Right? And every single person has a shaitan that's paired with, that is targeting them. Every person. Even the Prophet ﷺ, they said, Ya Rasulullah, even you have a shaitan as well? He said, yes, but mine is Muslim now. I taught Islam to mine. I gave Shahada to mine. SubhanAllah. I wish it were that easy for all of us. So shaitana, the Arabic word shaitana means a rope that is very long and tangled. You know, I mean, imagine the trouble you have like trying to tie your shoe. Your young brothers, and so you ever have trouble trying to tie your shoe or untie, you have a knot in the shoelace, for example. Right, it's trouble, it takes time to tie that. Shaitana is a long rope that is full of knots and tangles. It's not straight. It's confusing. It's problematic. One of the attributes of the rope, very interesting in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, is that some of the people that used to practice black magic, sihr, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the evil magicians there, they used to take a string and tie knots in it and blow a spell in the knot, right? And so this would attach itself to the person, and so the knot symbolized the spell, the evil spell, being locked in, being attached to the person. And so the idea of a rope and a knot is connected also not just with shaitan, but with magic and sihr. Learning about it, understanding is very important. We'll talk about it inshallah ta'ala. Because the Prophet ﷺ spoke about it. Surah Al-Baqarah speaks about it. Right? وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ وَلَكِنَّ كَفَرُوا شَيَاطِينَ يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ, for example. الشَّيَاطِينَ وَلَكِنَّ كَفَرُوا شَيَاطِينَ. Right? The shayateen disbelieved in Allah, rejected the order of Allah. يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. Right? And they taught people magic. So we believe in magic. Right? It's not just something in the world of Disney, but there's evil magic. And so these things are real. Right? And they infect relationships. And they break people apart. And so these things, this is from shaitana, the rope which has attachments to it and knots in it. And so it fastens and it binds, and it's a very long rope which symbolizes as well distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other meaning of shaitana is the horse that's unruly, the faras that's unruly, that has to be tied up. And he's tied up with two ropes on one side, going back and forth, right? Always constrained and limited and tied down. Not free, right? Always shackled. So think about being tied to your nafs or tied to your troubles, not free, and then not free from multiple angles. Shaitan comes from different directions. So this is very important as an understanding. Now, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were two men. One of them, his name was Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt. So Uqba was the stepfather of Uthman ibn Affan, radiallahu ta'ala. Right? So Sayyidina Uthman, his mother, radiallahu ta'ala, she married a second time, and she married Uqba. It was early in the Meccan period, early in the Risala of the Prophet ﷺ. And Uqba he didn't believe in the Prophet ﷺ. And he used to always try to invite the Prophet ﷺ to his house for dinner. And the Prophet ﷺ never accepted. And the Prophet ﷺ used to tell him, I'll come over your house for dinner, I'll accept on one condition. He said, what's that? He said, if you say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, then I'll come to your house for dinner. And Uqba, he said, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do that. So Uqba, he had a friend, his best friend, who was also not a believer in the Prophet ﷺ. And his best friend was Umayyah ibn Khalaf. His name was Umayyah ibn Khalaf. Umayyah was famous, infamous in Islamic history, because Umayyah was the master of Bilal. Right? So we know Bilal radiallahu ta'ala was a slave, and we know that he was tortured. So the one who tortured him was Umayyah ibn Khalaf. That was Uqba's best friend. And he was he was not a nice man. And so Uqba really pestered the Prophet ﷺ. Come to my house for dinner. Come, you have to come over. The Prophet said, no, take your shahada first, then I'll come over. So one day Uqba said, okay. And he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And the Prophet ﷺ smiled and went to his house for dinner. The next day, Uqba told his friend, and Umayyah, he said, what? What did you do? How dare you betray me? How dare you betray your tribe? How dare you do this? And he censured Uqba, became very upset, made him embarrassed, made him feel bad. And Uqba started to defend himself. He said, no, I was just doing that. I just said that just so he would come to my house, because I have everybody at my house, and I wanted to include him, so I just said it to make him happy and to convince him to come to my house. And Umayyah, he said, I'm not going to accept that as an excuse. He said, I don't accept it. He said, the only way I'll accept your excuse is if you go back to the Prophet in Dar al-Nadwa, in the public house, and to go to Muhammad and you spit on him. You spit on him and you spite his neck, hit him in the back of the head in public. So his friend, his bad friend, who was known as somebody who rejected the Prophet ﷺ, convinced him to do those actions. And Uqba did that. Subhanallah. Long story short, the both of them died in the Battle of Badr against the Muslims. Both of them died together. Point of this is that when Uqba did what he did, because of the pushing, the insight of his bad friend, because he didn't mean it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted the believers to learn a lesson. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Quran, in Surah Al-Furqan, chapter 25 of the Quran. He reveals in the Quran something very interesting. Usually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals something in the Quran, it's statements about, for example, things that happened in the past. Very few times do we get a case in the Quran where Allah is telling something about what will happen in the future to a person. like as an example of that, an exception would be Surah Lahab. Like Abu Lahab is living in the time of the Prophet, and Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab comes down right there. Abu Lahab is right there. So the Quran is speaking about what's going to happen to Abu Lahab while Abu Lahab is living, while his wife is living. وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. Very rarely do we get something like that in the Quran. It happens, but it's not so common. Usually it's about what happened to Musa alayhi salam, or what happened to Ibrahim alayhi salam, or if it's something in the future, it's about the Day of Judgment. Rarely is it about a person right there in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Walid ibn Mughira is the case too. But here with Uqba it happens. But what's different from this is that what Allah mentions about this situation is two things. One, the direct connection to shaitan. That shaitan was a part of this. And this is a lesson to all of us in many ways. This is the first lesson now that we will convey today. Next week another lesson, inshallah. But the other thing is that this verse is about what happens to Uqba. What Uqba says after he dies. After he dies. So this is Surah Al-Furqan. It's revealed in the Meccan time. Uqba dies in Badr, which is the second year in Medina. So Allah is revealing to the Quran, to the public and to the Prophet ﷺ, what he will say when he dies. Very deep. Surah Al-Furqan. Verse 27, if you want to look this up, write this down or read with me. Asta'idhu billah. وَيَوْمَ يَعُدُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. First Allah Ta'ala says, on the day that the zalim, what's zalim mean by the way? Those that know a little Arabic or speak Arabic, what is zalim? What is zalim? No one knows. Huh? No guesses? Someone who transgressed and oppressed. Very good. Zalim is somebody who takes the haqq of another person. Simply put. Man ya'khudh haqq ghayr. Whoever takes the right of another person is a zalim. Could be their financial right, could be their freedom, their liberty, their life, right? Whatever their haqq is, someone who takes it. Here in the Quran, the zalim, the oppressor, the transgressor can also be, in the ultimate sense, the person themselves. A person can transgress or oppress themselves. And that's where they put their nafs, they put their soul, they put their self in a place where it doesn't want to be, in the wrong place, in the Day of Judgment. In the future, they put their future self, haqq al-ghayr, the haqq of another, in another place. They put their future self, yani their future self is them, but it's not the same them as today. Just like you were you, but you're not the same you as you were when you were 15 or when you were 20. For those of you that are older than 20. You're not the same person. You don't think the same way. You don't have the same habits. You're you when you were 12, 15, 20, 25, but you're different. Same thing when you're 50 and you're you, but you're different. You're not the same as you were in 30, 40. You're a different person. But you're you, but you're different. So it's the haqq of another is put in the wrong place. The ultimate zalim, the ultimate transgressor is the person that wrongs their own self by putting their own self in the wrong position before Allah Ta'ala. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from that. يَوْمَ يَعُدُّ الظَّالِمُ. On the day where the zalim, the transgressor, will bite عَلَى يَدَيْهِ, will bite their hand. Like that. Why would you do that? One, Allah Ta'ala is saying on this day people will engage in self-harm. You know how you hear about people that engage in self-mutilation, self-harm. On this day people will harm themselves. Why would you do such a thing? Right? Why do people engage in self-harm? Why do they hit themselves, harm themselves, abuse themselves when they're sad, when they're depressed? Some people take their lives. May Allah protect us and our families from that. Suicide. And so Allah Ta'ala is saying on this day, the zalim will engage in self-harm. يَعُدُّ الظَّالِمَ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ is a meaning for they will hurt themselves. And also when people are like depressed and sad and angry and shocked, they do that, bite their hands. Right? Ya'uddu means to bite down with the top jaw to the bottom jaw, not just the front teeth. Right? The entire jaw. Right? Which is deep harm in the physical sense. Why would they do that? Yaqulu ya laytani. They will say, oh, how later means they wish something could happen, but it can't happen. I wish. Like sometimes as kids you say, you know, I wish I had $1 million. Well, one day you might have $1 million. It's possible. You know, I wish we had a new car. Well, maybe Baba will get a new salary, a new job, get a new car next year. It's possible. Later is when you wish something can happen and it's totally impossible. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So on the day of judgment, they'll say, I wish. It could be the case. It were the case, I wish. اتخذت مع رسولي سبيلا. I wish that I had taken that sabil, that path, ma'a Rasul, with the Prophet. That's Uqba's words. Allah's saying, okay, you did this, you went back, you listened to the influences of a horrible friend. So now what you will say, what will happen is on that day, you will harm yourself, and the reason you're doing that is because you will feel the sadness, the huzn, the regret, the isolation, the depression of the reality of your choice. And you will harm yourself trying to escape the situation because you know the punishment that's coming. So you just want to go away. Some people is self-harm because they fear something coming, so they just want to leave. They want to leave the world. Or they want attention to something else. So what's very powerful, he says, Uqba will say, I wish I had laytani. I wish I had taken اتخذت مع Rasul. I had taken that sabil, that path with the Prophet. And what's the sabil? What's the path he's talking about? The entire sabil of the Prophet ﷺ. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. But the word here is sabil. Sabil means the way. I wish I had taken the Prophet's way. I wish. So the source of regrets, first thing, we're not done with this. First thing is that the source of ultimate regret is the absence or the lack of us taking the prophetic way here. And the source of all happiness and salvation is taking the sabil of the Rasul, the Prophet's way, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's continue. Allah then says, right after that, 28, Ya waylata, oh, how ruined I am. Waylata, wayl, like waylun li kulli humazatin lumaza, waylun. Wayl in the Arabic language in the Quran means like destruction and halak. Like, I'm gone, I'm ruined, I'm finished. Right? Finished. Ya waylata, oh, how I'm done. Laytani, again, how I wish, how I really wish. It's never going to happen, but I wish. Lam ittakhadhtu fulanan khalila. Allah. I wish lam ittakhadhtu. I wish I had never, ever taken fulan as a khalil, as a friend. Very interesting. Allah Ta'ala in this ayah mentions fulan. Here, Allah Ta'ala, kama qala al-mufassirin, as the scholars of tafsir say, Allah mentions fulan. By the way, fulan is a general term. Like, I wish I had not taken so-and-so as a friend. Like in English we say so-and-so. Right, fulan. It's a general term for somebody because you don't want to mention their name. You don't want to mention their name, or you don't know their name. Or their name is not really important at all. Fulan. Yeah, I met fulan on the street. Some strange guy on the street, right? Here, though, in this situation, Allah Ta'ala is saying, Uqba will be so upset and angry at his friend Umayyah that he won't even say his name. Fulan also means you use fulan because you don't want to say the person's name, because you're so angry or upset with them. This person. Ya laytani, I wish, lam ittakhadh, I wish I had never, لم اتخذ, I wish I had never taken fulan, the so-and-so. Khalila. Khalil is not just a friend, brothers and sisters. Khalil is the kind of friend that you never leave their side, and who you want to be like and they want to be like you, and you could actually be a substitute for them. That close, that close. You're like the same. Finish each other's words, sentences. Deep friendship, deep bond. You know each other very well. Long time friend. I wish I'd never taken this person as a deep companion. Why? Because companionship, brothers and sisters, rubs off, affects each other. The Prophet ﷺ and said in Yawm al-Qiyamah, he said, "Al-mar'u ma'a man ahab." And a person in the Day of Judgment will be with the one they love, right? With the person they love. So be careful who you love, right? Make sure you're around the right people. So then he says, the last two parts. Ya waylata laytani lam attakhadh fulanan khalila. Wish I'd never taken fulan as a close friend. Laqad adallani ani dhikr. This is the part. That person, that fulan, adallani, misguided me, caused me to go astray. This person convinced me to go off the path. Remember, the idea of shaitan is فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Shaitan's characteristic is he's fasiq, from the command of Allah. Fasiq means the one who's exposed, who's out, excuse me, not exposed, out of the boundaries. Out of the boundaries. So fasaqa means the one who's out of the boundaries. Fasiq or fasaqa is the balah. What's balah? Who knows what balah is? What's balah? Huh? Aywa, tamar. Yeah, type of date. So fasaq is like the date, right? When it's on the tree and it's contained and it falls, like its outer shell opens, it falls, disconnected, right? From the source, it falls down. Also, fasaq is also the nut. The peanut. Peanut goes on the plant. The peanut, when it falls and it cracks open the shell, the shell is open and the nut's exposed. That's also fasaq. Fasaqa means to be exposed because now you're disconnected. So the peanut is not connected to the shell. The balah is not connected to the tree. So now you're disconnected. Right? You're separated. And because you're disconnected, you're away from protection. If you're away from protection, you're open to all kinds of things. Like the ghanam, the sheep, that's part of the herd. When the one sheep goes away, they're exposed to the wolf. Tamam? So this is fasaq. So the idea of shaitan is فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ. This is why the fasiq is the person that goes outside of Allah Ta'ala's rule, and they're exposed now. They're open to shaitan, they're open to whatever fits in, they're open, they're fasiq. Right? So he says here that لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ. That this person here, أَضَلَّنِي, caused me to go off the range, caused me to be separated, not exposed to protection. This is what bad friendship can do for you, young brothers and sisters, right? But not just keep you off the path, put you away. أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ. What is dhikr here? The Quran, the message of the Prophet ﷺ. أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ. From the dhikr. One of the names of the Quran is الذِّكْر. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah Ta'ala says, as the people of dhikr, if you don't know. And the people of Quran too. أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ. My friends convinced me to live a life, to walk a path that is outside and away from the dhikr. From the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to go. From the remembrance of Allah, remembering I should do this, I have to be like this, I should eat this, not that. I should do this, not that. أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. After that dhikr has come to me. Literally the Prophet ﷺ went, he used to go to the Prophet ﷺ and say, come to me, come to my house. This is like going to the dhikr. Come to me. The Prophet said, not until you first come to the dhikr. You, la ilaha illallah. A lot of times we want something from Allah, but we have to go. We have to do something. Oh Allah, please do this for me. But where are you? Are you praying? You ask Allah for something, but where are you? So he wanted the Prophet to go to him. The Prophet said, first you go to Allah. Do a shahada. First you go to Allah. When you go to Allah, then I'll come to you. When you go to the dhikr, then Allah's rahmah will come to you. So he said he went to the dhikr. The Prophet went to him, but then he went to his friend and said, oh, I didn't mean it. So when you go to the dhikr, you have to be sincere. If your qalb is not right, you're not going to get anything from it. Matter of fact, you put yourself in a horrible situation. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. After it has come to me. وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ في نهاية الآية. And shaitan is always وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ لِلْإِنسَانِ خَذُولًا. Shaitan is khadul to the human being. What does that mean? Shaitan is khadul to the insan, to the human being. Jealous, not necessarily. Khadlan is the word here. Khadlan. Khadlan is when you need something really bad. You know, you need something really bad, you're in a situation, right? And you get that thing, or you need help. And that help is right in front of you, and the person you trust the most, person you least expect to harm you, that person comes and takes it away right in front of you. That person, not your enemy. The person you least expect to harm you, that person comes and takes what you need to live, what you need to survive, takes it right away from you in your face. That is khadlan, treachery we call it in English, betrayal. Shaitan always betrays the human being. Always puts something in your face, presents it as something, and in reality, when you fall, I don't have anything to do with that. Not my fault. كَمَثْلِ الشَّيْطَانِ, Allah Ta'ala says in a different place in the Quran, إِذَا قَالَ لِلْإِنسَانِ أُكْفُرْ. When shaitan, he says to the human being, reject Allah. Ignore Allah. Ukfur. Be kafir. فَلَمَّا كَفَرَ, Allah Ta'ala says, when the human being, or if the human being, or when the human being does that, قَالَ إِنَّنِي بَرِيءٌ مِنْكَ. He says, I don't have anything to do with that. I'm innocent, shaitan says, I'm innocent. قَالَ إِنَّنِي بَرِيءٌ مِنْكَ. I'm innocent. That's him. Oh, that's her. He said, Inna Allah Rabbi inni akhafu Allah Rabbil Alameen. I'm innocent. I fear God. I don't know about you. You're kafir. You decided to say kufr. I'm innocent. Inni bariyun mink. That's from the Quran. So this is khadlan. Shaitan is full of tricks. Yani, brothers and sisters, in practice, in day-to-day life, things will look good, but it won't be good. Shaitan will present things that are one way, that are so nice and innocent and colorful and joyful and kids programs and all these things. And in reality, hidden messages, hidden agendas, hidden traps. Khadul. Khadul means to hide a trap for you or put a trap for you and then to make sure you fall in it and then act like he's innocent. This is the main characteristic of shaitan. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. Allah Ta'ala says, so people of Iman, because of this khadlan nature of shaitan, Allah said, He didn't say don't follow shaitan. He didn't say لا تتبعوا shaitan. He said لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. Don't follow the traces of shaitan. Very interesting. Don't follow the traces. Khutawat are not only the footsteps and traces, but it's also like the traps he lays. Don't follow it. Be very vigilant, very conscious. teach your children about not only shaitan, but the shayateen. إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ, for example. The shayateen. And so the idea is that of all things in the Quran, one of the early Salaf asked, Hatim Adi, he said, what did can you tell us something you learned from the Quran? And he listed 8 things that he learned from the Quran. But one of them, he said, I learned that you should never hate a human being. That's what he said. He said, in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala never teaches to hate any person. But there's one thing he says that you should hate, and that is shaitan, he says. He said, so I developed hatred and enmity to shaitan because Allah Ta'ala said, إِنَّهُ عَدُوٌ فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوٌ. He's an enemy, so treat him like an enemy. Right? So he said, I learned not to hate people. Very important lesson. But I hate shaitan, he said. I take him as an enemy. And so, وَمَنْ يَتَّبِعْ خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, Allah Ta'ala says, it said, لَا تَتَّبِعْ خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, O people of faith, O people of belief, don't follow the footsteps of shaitan. And then he said, وَمَنْ يَتَّبِعْ خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, whoever follows those footsteps, فَإِنَّهُ يَأْمُرُ بِالْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. Then know that shaitan calls you to one of 2 things. He calls you to fahsha, or he calls you to munkar. So fahsha, brothers and sisters, are those things, those actions that are completely outrageous and outside of the sharia, of what Allah said do, outside of the dhikr. In other words, it's ways of living, lifestyles, habits, behaviors, things that Allah said don't do. This is outside the path. Off the path, you're exposed. Right? Like the peanut that's fallen, like the balah that's fallen. Or you're off the path. This is the fahsha. An example, for example, Allah Ta'ala says, for example, استعيذ بالله ولا تقربوا الزنا إنها فاحشة وساء السبيل. عفوا وساء السبيل. So don't ولا تقربوا الزنا, right? Don't come close to this behavior. إنها فاحشة. Why? Because it's fahish. Fahish bima'na what? Not only just bad, but extremely horrible and completely outside of everything that is the dhikr. For example, the dhikr is not only the Quran alone, but it's all of the wahi completely. The Torah, the Injil, the Zabur, the Suhuf of Ibrahim alayhi salam, all of the dhikr. Everything Allah has always taught consistently to remember Allah, that is the dhikr. It's of course, it's contained as fully in the Quran. The Quran contains all of the guidance. But it also contains guidance that was taught from all the other anbiya, the prophets. So fahisha means it's the kind of horrible behavior that's completely outside of all that. And that's why Allah said, وَسَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. And it's an evil sabil, same word that Uqba used. Right? I wish I had taken the path of the Prophet, right, as a sabil. So shaitan calls to ways of living that are completely outside of that. And there are shaitanic forces in media, there are shaitanic forces on television, there are shaitanic forces on the internet, there are shaitanic aspects in society that we see, there are shaitanic aspects in some aspect, in some things in schools, there are shaitanic aspects in some things in human behavior, in interpersonal reactions. Muslims can act shaitanic in bad ways. There can be conduct, not people, conduct that is, and behavior that is shaitanic. Non-Muslims can act good, and non-Muslims can have conduct that is shaitanic. There's an entire realm of things that is contrary to the Quran that we have to be aware of. So shaitan calls to things that are completely outside of that. Fahsha, and then finally, wa munkar. Munkar is same but different. Fahsha is a term that is connected with the Quran and the teachings of the prophets. Fahsha. So you don't, that is connected to the opposite, the opposite of the teachings of the Quran. Yani it's connected to wahi. Whatever is opposite of that is fahsha. Okay? But munkar is connected to human nature, your fitrah. So munkar means things that are bad, that inside of you, when you see it, you say, oh, that's horrible. You say, oh, that's wrong. Why would somebody do that? Inside of you, it strikes a nerve, as we say. It's completely, it doesn't, we say, what? That is disgusting. That is horrible. Yani the nafs does, the nafs that is salim, at least, right? The nafs that is good doesn't accept that kind of thing. Totally non-acceptable, right? And so that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he talked about things that are in society that if you have a type of haya, modesty and decency, you wouldn't do it because you'd feel too embarrassed. You'd feel ashamed, you know? And think of it like this. I mean, if you're going to do something bad, like steal something from the store, nobody's looking, right? Or do something, whatever. What would happen if, for some kids, for example, some people, if their neighbor found out, maybe they wouldn't care. If their teacher found out, maybe they wouldn't care. Even for some people, I mean, really, subhanAllah, if their parents found out, and sometimes, subhanAllah, maybe they wouldn't care, some of them. But let's say your grandparents found out about it. Grandmother, grandfather, for example. Somebody you really, really respect, who you never, ever want to disappoint. And the kind of embarrassment, modesty you'd have, the kind of shame, this is a good English word, shame you would have to do that action in front of your grandmother or your grandfather or whoever it is in your life, that you would never want to disappoint them. You always want them to think the best of you, that person. That haya that you have, if you do something counter to that, that's munkar, because it disturbs you. There are things that the Sharia says are fahisha and munkar together, but that fahisha is determined purely by the Sharia, by the Quran. Munkar is determined not only, you know it not only by the Quran, but you know it also by your fitrah, by your inner nature, as long as that inner nature is not corrupt. There are things in media, there are things on television, there are things on the internet, there are movies for children, there are commercials on TV, there's advertisement in the billboards, there's all kinds of things going out there that are designed to corrupt this kind of haya and modesty and munkar action. So if you don't preserve that in your kids and in yourself, you just like look at it and etc. You accept it, right? That's a process to being desensitized. So shaitan calls to the munkar as well. Now the munkar may be the gray area, right? The cartoon character that your kids love, that one day on an episode you see something that's like, whoa, when did this happen? You know, the munkar, right? So Sharia doesn't talk about, for example, doesn't talk about cartoon character, for example, doing things, for example, right? That's the munkar. How do you know it's wrong? Fitrah, the haya, modesty, the shame. What is this? You can see things coming too. There's hints, there's little khutawat, muqaddimat, footprints. So when the haya and the modesty and the shame is shaken a little bit, that's when you know it's shaitan. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحْيِ فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you feel no haya, no shame, you're not embarrassed, do whatever you want. It's okay, do it. It's halal bima'na. It's okay. As long as, but there's a condition here, Imam Nawawi says, rahimahullah, this hadith means, as long as your haya is working in the first place. If you're living in the kind of environment that doesn't care about haya like this one, If you're living in with the kind of cultural teachings that are designed to disrupt haya, and dare I say, teach the opposite of haya, and to celebrate the opposite of haya, then you have a problem. Because now it's up to every single person in their family to teach haya. Because what's going on is that the absence of the haya, yani the presence of munkar, is the khutuwat shaitan, which eventually can lead and will lead to the fahsha. And munkar itself is problematic, it's haram as well. But it's haram because it attacks the haya and the modesty. Whereas the fahsha is fahsha because you're already immodest in the first place. You've gone already. Right? It's the last thing, you're off the cliff. Fahsha, zina, for example. You're already gone. Right? But before zina, there are things that happen that take you to that point. Right? There's all kind of mistakes and things that happen. There's khalwa, there's talking, all kind of things happen. Those are the munkars. Right? They're already wrong, you know they're wrong, you do them anyway. Then the fahsha happens and you're gone. You're really finished. Right? Sa'as sabil, evil road, you're already down the road. So the munkar, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ, the Prophet said, if this haya works and you feel no shame, do what you want. But there's another aspect, the opposite meaning, Imam Nawawi mentions, rahimahullah. He said there's also a threat from the Prophet Remember, the Prophet was Bashirun Nadhirun. The Bashir is, if you feel no haya, do what you want, it's okay. There's a Nadhir as well. إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي, if your haya is gone, you have no shame, because you're living in an environment of freedom, you're free to do whatever you want, فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ, do whatever you want, see what happens. Do whatever you want, be free. Do your haram, do it as a threat. See what will happen, yani. See what you wish, ya laytani, oh I wish. Ya waylata, oh woe, I'm ruined. Do what you want because it's free. Do what you want because everybody else is doing. This is the munkar. So, brothers and sisters, in closing, the first thing is to understand, we have to do is understand that, we are from the, for many people, Halloween is something that comes around, once a year, where they have to deal with their houses, and Halloween's about the old idolatry practice of the fact that bad things are going to come to your house, so you've got to protect your house by giving treats, right? That's what the trick-or-treat is all about. You protect your house because the demons are coming, the bad things are coming. Think about the kids dressed as monsters and kada and everything in costumes. The bad things coming to the house, the dead is coming to the house, the spirits are coming to the house, so now you have to protect it with treats. It's not just Halloween. For the Muslims, the temptations of shaitan are like that every single day. This is the point. And these things are real, but shaitan is not warded off by Snickers and Kit Kats and gum. That's not how you protect your home. It's not how you protect yourself. It's not how you protect your family. Don't teach your kids that stuff. Don't teach our kids to do those things. You protect your home, and you protect your family's home, and even your neighbor's home, by the recitation of the dhikr, by the Quran. So the first lesson, after we understand this context, because it's salat time, is that the last thing the Quran teaches us about shaitan is that the way to protect ourselves is the dhikr, is the remembrance of the text. And so the recitation of the Quran is the only defense against shaitan. Every single day, or at least on some habit, every home should be in the habit of playing the Quran, at least like on YouTube or something, ideally reading the Quran, not only in the masjid, but in your homes. I mean, what good is you reading the Quran in the masjid and you go home and you have shayateen in your home? Don't only read in the masjid. I'm not saying don't read in the masjid. I'm saying don't only read in the masjid and leave your homes abandoned and exposed. Right? You have to keep the Quran in your homes. The way you keep other things in your homes. Some homes, keep all kinds of things in it. The Quran should be an active presence, not in the book form, but in the recitation form. At least, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas. Every home should have some regimen where sometime throughout the year they're playing Surah Al-Baqarah. If you can read or recite Surah Al-Baqarah, take time out. Read Surah Al-Baqarah in your home. The Prophet ﷺ said that one who recites Surah Al-Baqarah in their home is protected for 40 days. From what? Not from people, spiders, from shayateen. So in the same way, if you knew that you were living in a bad neighborhood and there were thieves trying to break in your home, you would invest in some kind of protection. You'd be vigilant. If you knew that you were in a bad neighborhood, you'd lock the doors. Tell your family, lock the doors when I'm gone. In some neighborhoods, they get guns. Some other wealthy neighborhoods, they buy a security system, right? Lock the windows. You prepare your family you protect your family. We're very good at doing that from physical challenges, but we need to do that from spiritual ones as well. Don't just, when trick-or-treaters come around, don't just knock open the door. Understand that there's something deeper going on here. Shaitan doesn't knock. He doesn't. Shayateen they don't knock. They just enter and there's waswasa, and it comes through khatawat. You turn on Disney, you turn on this, you turn on that. It comes in your home. And so the first line of defense, first one, is the Quran. Every home should invest in some kind of reading of the Quran, at least on Jum'ah. At least on Jum'ah. If you can't read, turn it on YouTube. In the morning, in the afternoon, play Baqarah. Play Surah Al-Kahf, especially on Friday. Or just play anything from the Quran on YouTube. Just turn on a reciter and just leave it for half an hour. 15 minutes. 5 minutes. Start getting in the habit of this dhikr. This is the first step. Inshallah ta'ala, next week, bi'idhnillah, we build on it. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم من سائر المسلمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. عليكم السلام.